Out of 136 startups, only like a microscopic fraction are statistically supposed to survive their first 5 years.
Yeah, let alone actually achieve massive scale.
Right. And we are constantly fed this narrative, that a startup success is all about having that one lightning bolt billion-dollar idea.
Which is such a myth, honestly.
It totally is. But today, we're looking at a very specific methodology, a blueprint that actually yielded 6 initial public offerings and facilitated over, I think it was $111 million in investment.
Yep, across a portfolio of 136 companies.
Which is just staggering. And the secret behind that kind of track record, it wasn't a slightly better software product or some viral marketing campaign.
No, no, no.
The secret, as it turns out, is the psychological bedrock of the founder themselves.
It is entirely about the unseen architecture. I mean, we spend so much time analyzing the visible metrics of a business.
Like customer acquisition costs and all that.
Exactly. The daily active users, the burn rate. We treat the startup like a physical skyscraper where you can point to the steel and the glass.
Yeah, the tangible stuff.
Right. But the foundational landscape of a new enterprise is completely invisible. It's housed entirely inside the cognitive framework of the person actually building it.
And that invisible architecture is exactly what we're excavating in this deep dive today. So for you listening right now, the learner, the builder, the person standing at a crossroads.
You might be full of this immense hunger right now.
Exactly. Maybe you have a great idea that you've been validating on the weekends, and you're staring down the barrel of actually launching this thing into the real world.
It's a terrifying moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the question we're exploring today is not whether your idea is good. I mean, the market's going to tell you that soon enough anyway.
It always does.
Yeah, it doesn't hold back. The real question, like the existential question here, is whether you actually possess the mechanical and psychological grit required to survive the inevitable storms.
Which really is the ultimate filter. I mean, the glamour of the startup world is broadcast in high definition everywhere we look online.
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
The funding announcements, the pristine pitch decks.
Right, the bell-ringing ceremonies at the stock exchange. We see all of that. But the psychological endurance required to move from a raw, untested hypothesis to a lasting, self-sustaining enterprise.
That's completely hidden from the public eye.
Completely hidden.
So to get to the bottom of this, we're pulling our insights today from a genuinely fascinating blueprint titled Startup Planes, Building Business and Raising Funds.
Yes, specifically examining the overarching teachings of Dr. Shishir Gupta.
Right, and the mission of this deep dive is to isolate and deconstruct what the source material identifies as the ultimate foundation of business longevity, which they call the founder's DNA.
And to fully appreciate the weight of this concept, we really need to frame the massive scope of the curriculum we're pulling from today.
It's huge, right?
It's massive. The full Startup Planes framework isn't just like a quick tips and tricks pamphlet. It spans 100 distinct, highly technical phases of the entrepreneurial journey.
Wow, 100 phases.
Yeah. We're talking about a chronological roadmap that takes a founder from basic, napkin sketch ideation all the way through to highly advanced corporate maneuvers.
Like what kind of maneuvers?
Things like structuring a board of directors, establishing airtight corporate governance, stress testing for black swan economic events, and achieving absolute IPO readiness.
So it's basically a comprehensive clinical plan for building an empire.
Exactly. It's the whole playbook.
But the paradox here, and honestly the whole reason we're doing this specific deep dive today, is that absolutely none of those advanced late-stage strategies matter if the foundation is flawed.
They're completely useless.
Right. You can memorize the entire playbook on how to manage a venture capital board or how to scale into international markets. But it is all just noise if you don't get the phase 1 mindset right.
Precisely. Because if the psychological bedrock is cracked, injecting, say, $1 million in seed funding into that business, it's only going to accelerate the collapse of the building.
Yeah, it just makes the crash happen faster.
Exactly. Capital does not fix a fundamentally broken founder. It just scales their flaws.
That's a great way to put it.
The blueprint makes this abundantly clear. Before we can have any intelligent conversation about raising millions or, managing a cap table, we have to start at the very bottom layer of the founder's DNA.
We have to examine the raw, unfiltered mechanics of how a founder actually perceives their business on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Which brings us right into the trenches.
Yes. We're starting our examination with what the methodology calls the inventor's mindset. And the framework gives us a very specific origin point to anchor this concept.
Yeah. Dr. Gupta's own journey.
Right, which didn't start in a plush corner office or some venture capital boardroom. It began back in 1997 as a techie inventor and a software developer.
Which is such a crucial detail.
It is. And the argument here is that this specific technical curiosity, this deep desire to understand systems at their most granular level, is absolutely non-negotiable if you want your business to have any kind of longevity.
It really is crucial to contextualize what being a techie inventor actually meant back in 1997, too. Because it fundamentally shapes this whole mindset.
Oh, for sure. It wasn't like today.
Not at all. The digital landscape of the late 90s was not the highly polished, drag and drop, user-friendly environment we operate in now.
Right. There was no Squarespace or Shopify.
Exactly. There were no plug-and-play APIs. There was no Amazon Web Services to just seamlessly host your platform.
You couldn't just click a button and have a server.
No, if you wanted to build a software system, you had to understand the raw, unvarnished code. You had to physically rack the servers, manage the databases, and understand the absolute underlying logic loops of the entire architecture.
You had to be intimately and probably frustratingly familiar with how the machine operated at its most basic mechanical level.
You really did. You had to get your hands dirty.
I always think about this through the lens of a car. Specifically, the difference between knowing how to drive a vehicle and knowing how to rebuild a transmission.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right, because most founders start out knowing how to drive. They know how to put the key in the ignition, put a business in drive, and just steer it toward the market.
They can hit the gas.
Exactly. But if you're flying down the highway and the engine suddenly starts vibrating violently and making this terrible knocking sound, a driver is completely helpless.
They have no idea what to do.
Right. They have to pull over, pop the hood, stare blankly at the metal, and just call for a mechanic.
Hoping it's not too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. But what this methodology is arguing is that whether you are actually writing the Python code for your software or you're a non-technical founder running an e-commerce brand, you must possess this obsessive desire to understand the how and the why of your machine from the ground up.
You have to want to get that metaphorical grease on your hands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's unpack the mechanics of why that's so vital. Because it's not just a nice to have, right?
No, it's survival. If we look at the reality of a startup, it is not a stable entity. A startup, by definition, is a highly unstable, wildly unpredictable machine that is constantly, almost intentionally breaking.
Right. It's just chaos.
It is. It's a temporary organization in search of a repeatable business model. So when a crisis hits, and it is absolutely guaranteed to hit, if you do not understand the underlying mechanics of your business, you cannot isolate the problem.
And if you can't isolate it, you can't fix it.
Exactly. You can't fix it, and you certainly cannot scale it. Dr. Gupta's technical foundation as a developer in 1997 gave him the ability to view businesses not as, like, these abstract concepts, but as mechanical systems.
Like gears turning.
Yes. The text notes that this specific trait, this ability to look at a company and instantly see the interconnected gears and logic loops that remained his most vital asset, even as his career scaled massively into venture capital and global consulting.
So, okay, how does a non-technical founder actually apply this today? Because we kind of live in this golden age of abstraction and convenience.
We really do. It's almost too easy to start.
Right. If you have an idea this morning, you can use no-code tools to spin up a fully functioning web app by this afternoon. You can outsource your entire product development to an agency in another country on day one.
You can use artificial intelligence to write your marketing copy.
Exactly. But reading through this framework, it feels like skipping that techie inventor phase, or at least outsourcing that mindset entirely, is setting a massive trap for yourself.
It is setting a catastrophic trap, honestly. The danger of the modern tech stack isn't the technology itself. It's the illusion of competence it gives the founder.
The illusion of competence. That's a great phrase.
Well, think about it. When you use a no-code tool, or when you immediately outsource the core function of your business without taking the time to understand the underlying logic, you're essentially driving that car with a hood that has been welded shut.
Oh, wow. Welded shut.
Yeah. Let's look at a practical example. Say you run a direct-to-consumer brand, and suddenly your customer acquisition cost triples overnight.
Just completely out of nowhere.
Right. Your unit economics are completely destroyed. Now, if you have the inventor's mindset, you don't panic. You methodically audit the system.
You look at the gears.
Exactly. You check the ad creatives, you check the conversion rates on the landing page, you check the supply chain costs, you understand the causal relationship between every lever in the business.
But if you outsourced all of that understanding from day one,
Exactly. If you outsource the understanding, you just see the dashboard flashing red.
Mm.
You have no idea if the spike in acquisition cost is a structural flaw in your core business model, a macro shift in social media algorithms, or just a broken tracking pixel on your checkout page.
you are just completely flying blind.
Completely. Understanding the underlying logic of your business protects you from catastrophic failures because it gives you the diagnostic capability to isolate the problem before it bankrupts the company.
So you aren't just staring at the check engine light, hoping it magically turns off. You actually have a diagnostic scanner plugged right into the mainframe.
That's exactly it.
And I think adopting that mechanical view naturally causes a pretty profound shift in how you view failure itself.
How so?
Well, if you understand how the machine works, a breakdown isn't this mysterious personal curse from the universe, right? It's not bad luck.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right.
It's just a mechanical error in the system you designed. If your unit economics are upside down, it's a math problem, not a judgment on your character.
That is a very freeing way to look at it.
It is. And more importantly, if it is just a mechanical error in a system you built, it means you are entirely responsible for fixing it.
Which bridges us perfectly to the most challenging and honestly perhaps controversial layer of the founder's DNA.
Yes, how a founder handles adversity when they step into what the methodology calls the arena.
Right. The transition from the mechanics of the machine to the psychological resilience of the operator is where the true existential test lies.
It's the make or break moment.
It really is. And the source material drops an incredibly profound and, frankly, quite jarring statement here.
Yeah, it really stood out to me.
It dictates that a startup only fails if the founder decides it should.
Okay, I have to pause here and push back on that heavily on behalf of you, the listener. Because when I first processed that statement, a startup only fails if the founder decides it should, it felt like an incredibly unreasonable burden to place squarely on a single person's shoulders.
It does sound extreme at first.
It does. Let's look at reality. What if a massive global recession hits and consumer spending drops by 30%?
Right.
What if an unexpected regulatory change makes your entire product illegal overnight? Or what if a tech giant decides to clone your software and offer it for free, just completely crushing your margins?
All very real, very common scenarios.
Exactly. So are we really saying that if a founder is forced to close their doors under those catastrophic macroeconomic conditions, it is 100% their fault?
It is a completely natural, almost reflexive reaction to resist that idea. Because, let you point it out, it places the absolute crushing burden of survival squarely on the individual.
It just feels unfair.
It removes all the convenient excuses. But if we analyze the psychological mechanism behind this statement, it is rooted in what behavioral psychologists call the internal locus of control.
Okay, internal locus of control. Break that down for us.
Sure. While it sounds initially like a burden, it is actually the most liberating and empowering truth a founder can adopt.
But how is stripping away all my excuses and taking all the blame empowering? Like, if a regulatory body shuts down my industry, I didn't cause that. How is owning that failure empowering?
Because we have to look at the alternative.
Which is what?
The alternative is operating with an external locus of control. This is the belief that your ultimate success or failure is dictated by outside forces.
Like the market, the economy?
Exactly. The whims of venture capitalists, the algorithm, or just pure luck. If you believe that the macroeconomic environment killed your startup, then you are positioning yourself as a victim of circumstance.
Right. And victims don't have control.
By definition, they have no agency. If the environment controls your fate, then you cannot change your circumstances. You can only suffer them.
Okay, that makes sense.
But an internal locus of control dictates a very specific distinction. It acknowledges that while you absolutely cannot control external events, you have total, absolute, uncompromising control over your response to those events.
Ah, I see the nuance there. It's not claiming that the founder caused the pandemic or triggered the recession.
No, of course not.
It's saying that the decision to stop fighting, to stop pivoting, to ultimately fold the company during that recession, that is a choice the founder makes.
Precisely. It is about retaining agency in the face of chaos. The framework details how successful founders, the ones who actually possess this specific DNA, how they respond to seemingly fatal external blows.
So what do they do when the market crashes?
If the market shifts dramatically, they don't fold up the tent. They pivot the product to serve the new reality. If their primary source of venture capital funding dries up overnight, they don't shut down
Let's
operations.
figure it out.
Right. They aggressively bootstrap, they slash their burn rate, they find alternative non-dilutive revenue streams. When they get hit, they start seeking validation or sympathy from the outside world, and they instantly start seeking internal mechanical solutions.
They are operating in the arena.
Yes.
And that specific imagery used in the text, the idea of being in the arena with your face marred by dust and sweat, it perfectly captures the agonizing friction of entrepreneurship.
It really is agonizing.
Because, let's be honest with each other, the friction is terrifying. When you launch a business, you're stepping out of the comfort of theory and into the brutal reality of the market.
The market doesn't care about your feelings.
No, it doesn't. You are terrified of the no. You're terrified of the investor who looks at your pitch deck and laughs. You're terrified of launching a product that you spent 6 months building, only to have the market look at it and collectively shrug.
Which happens all the time.
Right. The arena is just a place of constant, daily psychological injury.
And that friction is the baseline reality of the job. There's this pervasive myth that highly successful founders are somehow immune to that fear, or that resilience is some magical innate gift bestowed upon a lucky few at birth.
Like they're just born tough.
Yeah, but the blueprint frames resilience very differently. Resilience is a muscle.
Like a physical muscle.
Exactly. And like any biological muscle, the mechanism of growth requires resistance. A muscle only hypertrophies when it is subjected to stress and micro-tears.
So the pain is the point.
Entrepreneurial resilience is built daily by consciously choosing to stay in that arena despite the dust, despite the sweat, and despite the endless string of rejections.
It requires a massive pivot in perspective.
It really does.
The methodology specifically highlights the necessary transition from the mindset of asking, why me, to the mindset of asking, what now?
Yes, that is such a key distinction.
And what I found so incredibly compelling about this distinction is the timing of it. The defining difference in founders who actually survive the arena isn't that they are like robotic sociopaths who never experience the why me despair.
Right, they aren't emotionless.
Exactly. They feel the pain of a lost client or a failed launch just like anyone else. The difference is the speed at which they make that pivot.
That is the core mechanism of resilience right there. Every single human being experiences the why me moment. It's an evolutionary response to loss or failure.
Of course, it hurts.
You launch a product, it crashes, and your immediate reaction is to feel the injustice of it. But the surviving founder actively compresses that grazing period.
They don't wallow in it.
Exactly. Where a doomed founder might spend 3 weeks complaining to their friends about how unfair the market is, the resilient founder compresses that grief into a tiny window.
Like how tiny?
They might allow themselves 5 minutes of intense frustration. Maybe they go for an angry walk. But then the mechanical mindset violently kicks back in.
To go back to the gears.
Yes. The locus of control re-engages, and the question immediately shifts to, what now? The market has spoken, the data is terrible. What is the mechanical fix for this new reality?
They treat the failure as data, not as a personal indictment.
Exactly. It's just information.
So let's map this out. You're a founder. You have developed this mechanical inventor's mindset so you know how your business works.
Right.
You have adopted a ruthless internal locus of control, accepting absolute responsibility for your outcomes in the arena.
Check.
And you have successfully compressed your why me phase into a 5-minute window. But once you achieve that state, there is a new danger.
Oh, definitely.
You can't just run around the arena swinging your sword in a blind panic.
Yeah.
If you have all this intense responsibility and drive, but no structure, you're just going to generate chaotic motion, not actual progress.
You'll just exhaust yourself.
Right. You need a highly disciplined framework to focus that energy.
Which brings us to the absolute necessity of strategic elimination and the ruthless prioritization of clinical execution over wild speculation.
And the text is incredibly firm on this point, isn't it?
Very firm. It states that idea hopping is a fatal trap for a founder.
The idea hopping trap. This is something every single person listening has likely fallen into at some point. I know I have.
Oh, me too. It's so common.
It's the curse of the creative mind. You wake up on Monday with a brilliant, world-changing idea for a new mobile app. You buy the domain name, you sketch out the logo, you are completely fired up.
You're ready to change the world.
Right. But by Wednesday, you read an article about artificial intelligence, and suddenly you think you need to pivot your app into an enterprise SaaS platform.
Naturally.
And then by Friday, You've abandoned the app entirely, and you're researching a completely different business model in, like, the logistics industry.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is. And it feels, in the moment, like you are being incredibly innovative and agile. But the harsh truth is, you're actually just avoiding the grueling, unglamorous work of execution.
Psychologically, it is a brilliant form of productive procrastination.
Productive procrastination. Explain that.
Well, it feels like real work, right? Buying domain names, drafting new business plans, sketching out features, all of these activities trigger dopamine releases in the brain.
They make you feel accomplished.
Exactly. They give you the emotional reward of building a business without ever subjecting you to the terrifying friction of actually selling the product to a real customer.
Because selling means they might say no.
Right. But this speculation yields absolutely zero tangible results. The source material provides some staggering empirical data to back up the power of pure execution over speculation.
Like the numbers we mentioned at the start.
Yes. Through this clinical methodology, Dr. Gupta facilitated over $111 million in investment across 136 startups and successfully guided 6 SMEs all the way to an initial public offering.
Let's just pause and respect those numbers for a second. 136 startups, 111 million in capital, 6 IPOs.
It's an incredible track record.
That level of compounding success does not happen by bouncing between 10 slightly above average ideas every month.
No, definitely doesn't.
That level of success only happens by selecting one idea, anchoring yourself to it, and obsessing over the micromechanics of its execution until it dominates a segment of the market.
It demands an intense transition from the visionary phase to the operational phase.
The day-to-day grind.
Right. The text emphasizes moving from idea to reality with clinical, almost surgical precision. You have to filter through the noise of 100 possible directions, select the single most viable path, and systematically devote your full-time capital and cognitive energy to optimizing it.
You absolutely cannot spread your resources thin across multiple speculative bets.
You'll just fail at all of them simultaneously.
This circles us right back to the software coding analogy we were discussing earlier.
Oh yeah, how so?
Well, if you are writing a complex software program and you have a single fatal bug in a core logic loop, the entire application will crash.
Right.
It does not matter how beautiful your user interface is or how slick your branding is, the system will fail.
The computer doesn't care about the branding.
Exactly. And in business, the exact same principle applies. You can have the most breathtaking, world-changing vision for your company. But if your foundational unit economics are broken if it consistently costs you $50 to acquire a customer, and that customer only ever pays you $30,
You're bleeding out.
your startup will crash. It's a mathematical certainty. If your early customer feedback loops are broken, and you are building a product in a vacuum without listening to the market, you will build something nobody wants to buy.
And your startup will crash.
Right.
This is the essence of what we call the operator's mindset.
The operator's mindset.
Okay. Yeah, a visionary is someone who can clearly see the destination on the horizon. But an operator is the person who gets out the machete and hacks the exact step-by-step roadmap through the jungle to actually get there.
I love that image.
And to maintain this level of clinical precision and avoid the trap of productive procrastination, the source material introduces a remarkably strict, uncompromising filter for a founder's focus.
Okay, let's break down this filter because this is something every listener needs to permanently etch into their brain.
It really is. The rule is laid out like this. If a daily activity does not contribute directly to your product's inherent value, your customer's direct experience, or your ability to raise capital, you simply should not be doing it.
That is ruthless. It is basically a razor blade taken to your calendar.
It has to be.
But let's apply that filter to the real world, and specifically to how it contrasts with the modern popularized culture of the startup hustle.
Oh, the hustle culture.
Yeah. If you look at social media, you see founders constantly broadcasting how busy they are. They're attending 3 different networking mesas a week.
Yeah.
They're agonizing over a minor color palette change on their pitch deck for 5 days.
Right, they're recording behind-the-scenes video blogs of their founder journey.
Exactly. They are incredibly, exhaustingly busy doing what looks like startup-like things.
But if we run those specific activities through the strict mechanical filter we just defined.
Let's do it. Let's run them through. Does redesigning your logo for the 4th time this month add any actual measurable value to the product?
No, it does not.
The code doesn't run faster. The service isn't better.
Right.
Okay. Does attending a generic local networking mixer Improve your customer's experience with your software.
Rarely, if ever.
Right. Does recording a daily vlog help you raise venture capital?
Unless your core product is a media company, probably not.
Exactly. Investors care about traction, not your behind-the-scenes aesthetic. Being constantly busy is very often the greatest, most sophisticated distraction from actual measurable growth.
It is the ultimate dividing line between the dreamers and the true entrepreneurs.
Tell me more about that divide.
Well, true entrepreneurs do not rely on busyness to feel successful. They map out the exact, measurable, often boring steps that lead to revenue.
The machete in the jungle.
Exactly. They practice extreme strategic elimination. When a successful founder looks at their daily to-do list, they don't try to accomplish all 20 items.
What do?
They enthusiastically cross off 80% of those tasks because they realize those items do not survive the filter.
They just delete them.
Yeah. They narrow their vision exclusively to the mechanical levers that actually move the business forward.
All right.
Building the product, talking to the users, and securing the capital to scale. Everything else is just noise.
Wow. So if we compile what we have so far, we're looking at an incredibly formidable founder.
A very capable machine.
Yeah, we have someone who understands the granular mechanics of their business from the code up. They possess an ironclad internal locus of control, taking absolute uncompromising responsibility for their survival in the arena.
Right.
And they are executing on one single vision with clinical precision, ruthlessly eliminating any distraction that doesn't add direct value.
Which is a powerful combination.
If you execute that formula, it will absolutely get you to your first $1 million in revenue. It is mechanically sound.
It is highly effective. It is the exact formula that generated those IPOs. But
here is where we hit a critical psychological wall.
yes, we do.
The harsh reality that the blueprint reveals is that clinical mechanics and ruthless execution by themselves are too cold and too sterile to sustain a human being over a timeline of decades.
You can't just operate as a calculating machine.
You can't. To survive the grueling long-term marathon of entrepreneurship, you need a massive renewable energy source.
And this introduces the final and perhaps most vital layer of the founder's DNA, the power of purpose.
The power of purpose.
Yes. The text states very directly that building a company solely for the purpose of a financial exit building just to get rich will inevitably lead to psychological burnout.
The money isn't enough.
It never is. Longevity in this game must be fueled by a much larger external purpose. For Dr. Gupta, the source material explicitly notes that this specific overarching mission was the goal to generate 1 million jobs.
1 million jobs. That is massive.
It is.
I really want to dive deep into the emotional reality of why this purpose is necessary. Because the text uses two specific phrases that carry a lot of weight. The trough of sorrow and the concept of parashani, which translates to deep trouble, anxiety, or distress.
Right, the reality of the daily grind.
Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar with the startup life cycle curve, the trough of sorrow is a very real, very agonizing phase.
Everyone goes through it.
When you first launch a company, there's this peak of unwarranted optimism. The press might cover you, your friends congratulate you, the adrenaline is high.
You feel invincible.
But then, the novelty wears off, the initial launch spike fades, you enter the trough.
And it gets dark.
It gets so dark. You have a product in the market, but the month-over-month growth is painfully, agonizingly slow. You are grinding every single day, tweaking the mechanics, facing constant rejection, and it feels like you are pouring rocket fuel into an engine, but the transmission hasn't engaged.
You're just spinning your wheels.
You are burning massive amounts of energy, making a ton of noise, but the vehicle is only inching forward. It is soul-crushing.
It really is.
So my question is, structurally, how does a lofty, abstract mission like creating 1 million jobs actually help a founder survive the trough? Because a mission statement doesn't magically deposit payroll into your bank account when your runway is dangerously short.
It is the most practical question you can ask. And you are right. A noble mission statement on your website does not pay the server bills.
Right.
But what it does do is provide the deep psychological stamina required for the founder to go out and find the money, to stay up all night to fix the broken mechanics, and to endure the parashani without quitting.
Ah, so it's the fuel.
Exactly. As we discussed earlier, resilience is a muscle. But the energy required to continually flex that muscle day in and day out for years is not a finite resource. Dopamine and adrenaline eventually run out.
You just get tired.
You get exhausted. The energy only becomes a renewable resource if it is fueled by a cause that is significantly larger than your own personal bank account.
So let's play this out. If my entire motivation for starting a software company is just to achieve a $10 million exit so I can buy a yacht and retire.
Which is a lot of people's motivation.
True. But the moment I enter the trough of sorrow, the moment the perishani becomes unbearable and my health starts suffering, my brain is going to perform a very rational calculation.
Oh, absolutely.
It will look at the pain, look at the diminishing odds of the payout and say, this isn't worth the suffering. I'm quitting. I'll go get a high-paying corporate job.
Precisely. A purely profit-driven, extractive motive is incredibly fragile in the face of extreme, prolonged adversity. When the pain outweighs the potential financial reward, the rational mind will just choose to quit.
It just makes sense to quit.
Right. But let's contrast that with a purpose-driven founder. The 1 million job mission isn't just a clever marketing tagline to attract investors.
It's deeper than that.
It is a profound structural commitment to fundamentally changing the macroeconomic landscape. Think about the mechanical ripple effect of that specific mission.
Creating 1 million jobs.
Yeah, every single job created by those startups isn't just a metric on a quarterly report. It represents a family being supported.
Yeah.
It represents an individual being given economic dignity and purpose.
It changes lives.
It represents a local ecosystem being strengthened. When you are building a company with that level of consequence, the decision to quit in the trough of sorrow is no longer just a personal financial calculation.
It's much bigger.
Quitting feels like an abandonment of a profound duty to others.
Wow. It forces a massive fundamental paradigm shift in the brain of the founder.
It rewires you completely.
You are completely shifting the core operating question of your business from an extractive mindset like, how can I win? And how much value can I capture from this market?
Right.
To a contribution mindset, how can we build a system that adds lasting, undeniable value to this market?
And what's truly fascinating here is the empirical data backing up this philosophy.
What does the data say?
Well, when the blueprint discusses those 6 IPOs that Dr. Gupta guided, it makes a very critical observation about the nature of those massive financial events.
Okay. What was the observation?
The immense generational wealth realized in those public offerings was not the primary obsessive goal of the daily operations.
Really?
Really. The financial rewards were the natural, unavoidable byproduct of providing exceptional mechanical value at a massive scale.
So the money followed the value.
Exactly. By focusing intensely on the contribution, by building products that genuinely solved problems and generated jobs, the market naturally rewarded them with capital.
I absolutely love that distinction. Extraction versus contribution.
It changes everything.
When you focus entirely on solving the mechanical problems of your customers, when you focus on contribution, the market becomes the mechanism that rewards you.
Yes.
All the things we've talked about today, the inventor's mechanical curiosity, the psychological armor of the arena, the clinical execution and elimination of distractions, they're all just the vehicle.
They are the tools.
They're the engine block and the transmission.
Yeah.
But the mission, the larger purpose, is the high-octane fuel that actually keeps that engine running through a 20-year journey.
We have dissected the anatomy of the founder's DNA quite thoroughly now. I mean, we've mapped out the entire internal architecture required to survive the journey from a napkin sketch to a lasting enterprise.
We have.
Yeah.
But simply understanding the anatomy of this DNA isn't enough. For you listening right now, we have to transition from analyzing theory to demanding practical application.
We need to see if it works for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you actually install this operating system into your own life today? It is time to turn the mirror squarely on you.
And the source material provides a final, highly actionable framework for this, which they call the Founder's Audit.
The Founder's Audit. Now, the term audit is usually reserved for accounting, right?
Right. It implies a clinical, unemotional review of financial ledgers to ensure everything balances.
But here, we're demanding that you perform a clinical audit of your own mindset,
Yeah.
your reflexive emotional reactions, and your daily operational habits to see if they actually align with the DNA of longevity we've outlined.
So I want you to actively do this right now. Take out a mental notepad.
Yeah, play along with us.
I want you to directly and honestly challenge yourself. Think back to the very last time a project of yours failed, or even just hit a significant, painful roadblock.
We all have one.
When that failure occurred, what was the very first thing your brain did?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Did you immediately start scanning the horizon for a scapegoat? Did you blame your co-founder, the macroeconomic climate? the unfair social media algorithm, or the lack of venture capital in your city? Or did you instantly adopt the internal locus of control and look for the mechanical fix?
Did you ask, what specific gear in my engine failed, and how do I take responsibility for rebuilding it?
And while you are conducting this painfully honest self-assessment, the source material offers one final critical warning about the nature of time and patience.
What's the warning?
The rule is, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20.
Oh, that is the most pervasive poison in the modern startup ecosystem.
It is everywhere.
It is so incredibly easy to do today because our entire media landscape is designed to broadcast everyone else's chapter 20 in crystal clear high definition.
Exactly.
We log online and we see the IPO announcements, we see the $30 million Series B raises, we see the perfectly polished podcast interviews of founders who have already made it.
But what we don't see, what is hidden from the feed, is the 1997 dial-up connection.
Yes.
We don't see the decades where that founder was just sitting in a dark room, staring at broken code, exhausted, terrified, and actively battling the parashani of the trough of sorrow.
Precisely. You have to remember the context of Dr. Gupta's journey. It began in 1997. It involved decades of unseen, unglamorous trial and error, of severe distress, and of thousands of hours spent failing in the arena.
Entrepreneurship is not a job title you can simply claim by printing it on a business card or putting it in your social media bio.
No, it's not.
It is a rigorous, daily, often painful practice of mechanical and psychological self-improvement. You're constantly iterating and debugging your product, yes, but more importantly, you're constantly iterating and debugging yourself.
Let's do one more highly practical audit right now, something you can apply immediately.
Let's do it.
Think about your actual to-do list for tomorrow morning. Look at the specific tasks you have planned out for your day. Now, I want you to run every single one of those tasks through the strict clinical filter we discussed earlier.
The 3 questions.
Right. Look at item number 1 and ask yourself, does this activity directly and measurably contribute to the intrinsic value of my product?
Question 2. Does this activity directly and measurably improve my customer's experience with my business?
And question 3. Does this activity directly and measurably improve my ability to raise the capital needed to scale?
If you look at a task on your list and the honest answer is no to all 3 of those criteria, you have to ask yourself why it is on your calendar at all.
Right.
Are you performing that task just to give yourself the dopamine hit of feeling busy, or are you actually trying to build a lasting enterprise?
It is a brutal, uncomfortable question, but it is the only question that matters if you want to survive the arena.
It really is.
Okay, let's pull all of this incredible architecture together. We have gone incredibly deep today into the invisible foundational bedrock of business longevity.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. We started by unpacking the inventor's mindset, that absolute, non-negotiable technical curiosity that compels a founder to understand the raw, granular mechanics of their business.
So they actually have the capability to diagnose and fix it when it inevitably breaks.
Then we explored the intense psychology of the arena mentality. We defined the absolute necessity of adopting an internal locus of control.
Understanding the crucial distinction that while you do not control the chaotic external events of the market, you retain total control over your response.
Exactly. We established that your startup only truly fails the precise moment you voluntarily decide to stop pivoting and finding solutions.
And then we looked at the critical transition from visionary to operator through the clinical focus of strategic elimination.
We discussed the psychological traps of idea hopping and productive procrastination,
The necessity of prioritizing execution over speculation.
and the power of applying that ruthless 3-part filter to every single action you take in your business.
And finally, we discussed the absolute biological necessity of connecting your daily grind to a massive contribution-based mission, such as the drive to generate 1 million jobs.
We established that this purpose is the only renewable fuel source potent enough to carry a founder through the crushing weight of the trough of sorrow and prevent long-term burnout.
It is a profound, deeply interconnected system. You cannot have the mechanics without the mindset, and you cannot have the execution without the purpose.
But before we sign off and send you back to building, we want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to chew on. Something for you to explore on your own that builds on the framework we've laid out today.
Think deeply about this. If we accept the premise that a startup only truly fails when the founder finally decides it should,
Right.
And if we accept that resilience is not a magic gift, but truly just a muscle built by voluntarily staying in the terrifying friction of the arena,
Is the question.
what is the very first mechanical bug in your own life or business right now that you are actively choosing to ignore, simply because it feels emotionally easier to blame the market?
Oof. That is a heavy one. That is the audit to carry with you today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If this conversation helped clarify your foundation or forced you to face a hard truth about your execution, share this with a fellow founder who is deep in the trenches right now and might need a stark reminder of what they're actually building. We will be back soon to excavate more insights, but until then, I will leave you with a signature sign-off from the Source Blueprint. Keep building because the world needs your solution.